What's up, guys? Lincoln Shrike here once again to bring you a race breakdown. And we had a pretty special one. Track season, the distance races, the stars have gotten back in full form. And at the 2019 Bryan Clay Invitational this past weekend in Azusa, California, some of the top milers in the country, really all of the big names got together for the fastest 1500 on the college side so far in 2019. A race that came down to the final meters, maybe even the final centimeters. It was so close and so fascinating with so many stars lining up in this one. So let's go ahead and get it started. Pretty congested start. We got some jostling to open things up. A couple pros in here as well. Hassan Mead, Drew Piazza, but the big names are all these NCAA stars who I will highlight in just a moment. Spoiler alert here, the man who will end up winning, Oliver Hoare, is right here from Wisconsin. We know him as the 2018 NCAA 1500 champion. But this race, dating back to what happened NCAA indoors just in March, has all of the big names. We have Jordy Beamish here from NAU, the mile champion. This guy wasn't in the mile, but Yared Nuguse, he won the DMR for Notre Dame, so he's a big player here. Waleed Suleiman was in that race. Guy who finished fifth, I believe. William Paulson is in the background there. We also have Carlos Villarreal, and somewhere in the mix there, you can't quite see him, but is Sam Worley. So just a ton of the biggest names here, and it's making for one exciting race. And lots of quick marks will be put down when all is said and done here. So let's keep rolling. Now, so much of what happens in this race is dependent on positioning. It's a time trial, but it's awfully congested with so many bodies here. Ultimately, it's about finding yourself a safe position, make sure you stand on your feet, and don't run too much distance. And some of our veteran guys in this field will end up making some mistakes that will cost them in the end. And I do want to highlight one such example here. I was talking to Yared Nuguse, a great runner, incredibly skilled, a great finisher. But the one thing he told me earlier this season that he's really working on when he gets to that high-profile racing is positioning. And you can see him here on the outside running in lane 2. That's a theme throughout this one. Nuguse was my pick to come away with this title, come away with this win here at Bryan Clay, but he does so much of his running outside in lane 2. He ends up running more distance. So we'll keep an eye on him as the race continues to go forward. He does end up with a good performance, but again, too much running in lane 2, and I think that took him out of the running to win the race. So continuing to go along here. It's a quick opening tempo. Ian Crow Wright of New Mexico and Alex Rogers of Texas doing the pacing duties. Everybody just kind of getting themselves sorted out over this first 400 meters. So we see Grijalva up in the mix. Oliver Hoare steadily at the front as well. So many guys in this right now. So we'll highlight here Mr. Carlos Villarreal. We'll talk about him a lot as the laps develop here. He is another guy like Nuguse that the talent is completely there. The speed is there. The fitness is there. He's got to work on positioning. And here, it looks like just past the lap, he's trying to slot himself up near the front, trying to give himself a chance to employ that legendary kick that he has used to ride to victory so many times in the past. He's going to move up into position up here, but unfortunately, as the race goes on, he will fall back again. He comes this close to winning this, but perhaps if Villarreal could have stayed up front the entire way, it could have been a different story for him. So a smart early move for him, but one that ultimately he falls back on. So just about 500 meters into this one, Rogers has assumed the pacing duties. Rogers is another good miler, sub-4 miler this past winter, but he ran the 5K a night before here in Azusa, so he's just doing some pacing duties. And we'll come up shortly with 2 laps to go. Hoare, again, in perfect position, a little bit on the outside, but staying up front and crucially staying out of trouble here. And trouble, it can affect you at the front of the pack or even in the back of a pack, as we'll find out here. 2 laps in, and watch out at the back of the race. Hyuga Endo of Japan will run that back one more time. Takes a stumble, and I think a pretty miraculous and impressive recovery for him. Now, in most races, he would be disqualified here, but he gets back up on his feet. But that's the sort of trouble you can get yourself into a race as tight and as competitive as this one. So we continue to roll here. Now the pace is starting to roll, and some guys are starting to fall back, and it's starting to string out a little bit here. And this is where Hoare really does well here. He's right behind the pacer here. Here's Coach Pete Watson, just a random aside here, giving some directions to Sam Worley and maybe Alex Rogers here to get this pace moving. Go forward. That's some good coaching there. But my biggest emphasis here is Oliver Hoare. He does end up winning. Now, it's just by the slightest margin, but he gets that advantage by virtue of the tactics he used here. Staying up front the entire time, staying near the rail. That's what truly won him the race here. Not just any finishing speed or anything else that somebody else did. It was his ability to stay up towards the front of the race and be a smart tactician while the other guys kind of jostled it out throughout the rest of the contest. So continuing to head to our last lap here. Hoare in fantastic position. And upcoming here is really, for me, the big difference in the race and how it played out to the finish line. And we'll freeze it here. We have Hoare, who will ultimately win this race. But the man who will challenge him all the way to the finish line is Carlos Villarreal. Now, on one hand, it's quite impressive that he makes up all this difference. There's 6 bodies in his way between him and Hoare. But on the other hand, that's really why he fell short of the finish line. Not just because he stumbles a bit at the line, but it's the fact that he had to do so much work. And like we talked about with Villarreal, it's all about positioning. The talent's there, the speed is there, but he's really got to get himself in a little bit better position so that he can utilize his kick to where he doesn't have to come from so far behind in all of his race efforts, because it can, when you're facing this deep of a field, it can cost you a win. So continue to roll here. So Rogers is stepping off now. Now it's just the guys who are going for the victory here left to duke it out with 450 meters. Worley starts to make a move up towards the front to kind of get himself in position. 1 to go at 240. Again, Hoare, yes, he's up front, but he's kind of in a tough position. He's the hunted here. And we got NCAA champions behind him and guys who run very quick in the mile. So this is going to be a tough effort for him. 300 to go. And look at Villarreal. He's now starting to move. So he's a threat at this point. There's no doubt. But he's doing so much work to get himself into this position, whereas Hoare is just kind of maintaining and has not had to go to his full speed yet. Villarreal is really happened to tap into it. And I do want to highlight not just Carlos here, but also Negus. These two guys will finish 2 and 3, and they're really some of the best kickers in the NCAA. Negus outkicked Grant Fisher for the DMR title, and Villarreal, it seems like every week he's coming back from some major deficit to score a really fast time. But these two guys were really, really far back at the beginning of this last lap, and it's just too much work for them. They need to position themselves better going forward to make sure that they can really excel at the championship level. Now, of course, championship races are run differently than this. This is a time trial. But these guys have a lot to learn from this effort, as they know that they would have probably, Villarreal could have won and Negus could have possibly won or finished second here if he would have been more consistently up front throughout the entire effort. So here we go. Now this final 100 is really where it gets fun, and we'll kind of slow it down, but we see Villarreal moving to the outside. He's spinning a lot of shells to get up here. And here we go. He's looking good. He's got a smile on his face. We got a coach yelling at him here. We can tell it's starting to get really, really fun here. And just watching it, if you're looking at it, it seems like Villarreal's going to win this race. He's got all the momentum here. Hoare's had to lead, and he, to be honest, looks to be in a little bit of pain. But again, I've said it once, and I've said it a million times, the fact that Villarreal had to pick off 6 guys to get to this point, he is ultimately going to pay for that, and he was kind of just betting that he wouldn't run out of steam all the way to the line. But he will pay for his the fact that he had to come from so far behind, and unfortunately for him, it comes right near the finish line. So here we go. Again, Villarreal moving to the outside, looks strong. And it looks like Hoare's broken as Villarreal's got the advantage here. You can see some overlap here. So it looks like it's going to be all Carlos Villarreal. But watching these next couple frames here, ooh, this is where you can see he is tying up now. And that folks, is when Hoare sees a little window. He's been left open lane 1 by Villarreal, kind of having to swing outside. Another side effect there of him having to rally and come behind, and Hoare already being in position. So we talk about speed and fitness so much, but positioning at this level is so important, and Hoare's going to take advantage of that here, and we'll watch this kind of last 20 meters, which is was absolutely fascinating, one of the stories of the weekend. So we'll watch it play out all the way to the finish line. It's tight. You can't tell what's going to happen, but all of a sudden, Villarreal stumbles and flips across the line, whereas Hoare is just kind of leaning, and he'll get the narrow victory. We are going to run it back real quick, and we'll show you this kind of in a slower motion here. So these guys are basically stride for stride. We're going to slow it down here. They lock arms, and it's then Villarreal who has to dive across the line. But look at Hoare here. I want to highlight, he's no worse for the wear at this point. We have Villarreal on the ground. Ultimately, he's going to swing back on his back, completely spent from that heroic effort to try to rally from behind. But Hoare looks like he just completed a jog in the park. He's just jogging through unscathed. And, man, yes, he was tested at the finish line, but you can't get much easier than that from such a tightly contested race. And credit goes to Hoare for really staying calm through all that while Villarreal was making that late push. So we'll watch the rest of these guys finish. Villarreal is completely spent. You really do got to give him credit. I was kind of harping on his tactics there, but he completely spent from that effort, and he ended up on the ground after that, and it looked like he was okay. But want to highlight the times. Obviously, not just the win is important. These are the top 8 times. Well, let's do that again. The top 8 times in the NCAA so far this season. Hoare, he'll take momentum into the postseason, as I know it's a time trial, but still, being the defending 1,500 champ, he regained some of the momentum he lost by finishing 3rd in the NCAA mile, 3:37.20, a great mark for him. Villarreal, another good one as well. These are the top 8 times in the NCAA so far this year. We have Jordy Beamish, who won the mile all the way there in 7th. Just highlights how deep of a distance this is right now in the NCAA. Nagoose, again, the story with him again is got to position himself better, because he finishes really well, but possibly if he would have been up further and not running in lane 2, it could have been a victory for him. So all in all, a great race, and a fascinating one when it came to tactics and kicking ability for these NCAA stars. And folks, stay tuned for more race breakdowns coming to you later this week on FloTrack.